JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, February 6th, 3:30 on this fine morning, afternoon. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P is pretty much right at the highs of the day, up 1.75%. What a remarkable, what a difference the day makes, right? So they say nothing, no crazy catalyst, no changes, no earth-shattering news or catalysts or events. It's just today people are buying instead of selling, right? It's funny how they say it, right? There's just more buyers than sellers. I almost felt like yesterday, I try to use analogies or whatever it is to kind of describe the market. And to me, it feels like uh, yesterday, it's like they took all the greedy, when I would say the greedy folks, but all the Uber bulls, the people who were bullish saying like Bitcoin to 1 million, markets going to 8,000, all the people who just been going, had the bull by the horns and been riding it and kind of gave him a timeout, right? Just said, okay, time to go into the timeout, and then just taught him a lesson. And now it's back to buy mode. Who knows where we go? I don't know if next week's 700 on a SPY. I'm not gonna sit here and say today erases what happened over the last couple of days and the software massacre, I guess you would call it, and what went on with Bitcoin. To me, it's a little concerning that there was no buyers yesterday on Bitcoin, and you tell me today that people are willing to pay 10 or 11,000 more dollars for Bitcoin than yesterday just because people decided to buy. Tough to wrap my head around. Me, I think some of it yesterday maybe been the start of some forced selling, some liquidation by folks who had a choice to either worry about margin calls or whatever, or liquidate, and they got forced. Maybe that's some of it. I don't know. Uh, but today kind of like speaks to what I've been saying for, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks. It's like the the economy is going strong, right? The GDP estimates 5% more from the Atlanta GDP now for first quarter. When that read comes out, yeah, you have to think it's just the market saying the U.S. economy is fine, it's strong. Everything else is kind of like headwinds. All these, not headwinds, noise. And then at some point, when the market starts to really sell off, then you would say, okay, now it's starting to price in a slowdown or what have you. So for right now, that's kind of what I'm chalking it up to today. I mean, people try to find headlines. A couple days ago, right? It was the 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 drones, the Iranian drones getting shot down by the U.S. a couple days ago. That was the reason the market sold off, right? Or software names sold off. Just funny. That's kind of the grasping at straws situation. But anyway, I talked about 686 on the SPY, so over that. Now we're back in that range, 693 on the SPY. We'll see. We're not going to get that today, but just remarkable stuff. The S&P was just down about 0.2% for the entire week, right? So someone who hasn't been around on vacation to come back today, so not a bad week, only down 0.2%. Meanwhile, it's been pretty interesting. Needless to say, hopefully can get a little more convicted on some names, be a little more aggressive. But there's scenarios this past week, like if you were going crazy buying the dip and getting in calls, or doubling down the positions, you could get a rough week. It's one of those weeks where you can get destroyed. I mean, on the flip side, if you had puts, you had to be selective in the sectors you're in too. So, and then some of the names that had already sold off the previous week, those are the names that really had just follow through. The Intuits, right? I mean, if you had puts, had to get the puts on Intuit or Adobe, they're very expensive. So you have to get the timing down. Even I think it was yesterday I was looking at Adobe, and Adobe was actually bouncing. So interesting week in regards to option trading, at least for me, because a little different when you're just buying, selling common stock, right? Because you're just making money on the move, and you instead of having a finite time period, unless you're counting, having your lifespan, right? You can hold a stock as long as it takes to get where you want it to go. With an option, you don't have that luxury. So you factor that in with the inflated premiums this week and all that, just makes it very challenging environment to trade options, at least for how I trade. Other people might have done spectacular, but me, when you get this past week, it was kind of more about just you know, like a turtle, get in my shell, protect myself, and then when I find names to get convicted on, get out of the shell and go from there. All right, so that's overall market. Just quick on individual names. Yeah, take a look at the SPY candle. You show me where the software massacre is, right? I mean, just remarkable. And of course, if I pull the Nasdaq, that's a different story. Look at the IGV ETF, and a picture paints 1,000, whatever that saying goes, right? I mean, of course I could post a different chart of a different sector or what have you, and you get a different perspective. But to me, the SPY, that's kind of what I track to gauge sentiment and things like that. So, all right, that's overall markets. Just quick on individual names. finally, right? Today, I mean, I should say finally, I added those uh, served 13, was it 1350s? Those are the last position I added. 1350s on February 3rd. So today is the 6th. Is that Tuesday? Gosh, I'm having uh anyway. Yeah, so finally I was looking to get some more strikes on serve, but it's finally breaking out. And when I say breaking out, it's at 1072. When I got the calls on Tuesday, I think it was around the same point. 1075 is that big spot. So 200-day moving average there, right at 1125. If markets find footing to start next week, it could be the start of its big move, and it's going to happen fast. Let's see here. Post a chart. Um, the 1350s, and I pull them up. They're coming back to life. 16, or I think I'm 24. So not going to go on a big rant on Serve Robotics. And then Align, right? So Align, I wasted a lot of mental energy yesterday watching it. I was going to get some spec calls after its earnings. They posted a great quarter. And if you know Align, you can look back at the chart back in August. It got absolutely decimated on a decent report, but it's a name that a lot of folks are skeptical on. I think it used to have a much higher short interest than it does now. Some of that is because the company has posted monster beats and raises, has scaled out international growth, has I don't know if it's $1 billion or $2 billion cash hoard, no debt. Just a great story. And it's one of those names I've traded a lot in the past because it's been rewarding when you get the timing right on the option. So, sorry, trying to get the calls yesterday. Thankfully, I sat on my hands because I was looking at the 190s at the open, 192.50s. And then I was watching it again today, and boom, right out of the gate, all the way over 180, it pulled back, went and got some spec lottos. I was actually going to get some calls for this week, went and got the calls into next week, and then chopped around in the morning up at 184, then back down to 182, and then boom, took off, got over 185, locked some of the calls in for 100%. I'll just continue to hold those into next week. The good thing about a move like this on a line, it's like I used to call IPO smash ups a similar kind of scenario where it's like price discovery after an IPO. So a stock IPOs has like a day or two consolidation and then it just takes off. So you take a look at a line and maybe you won't get a day or two consolidation, but just posted a monster report, raised guidance, consolidated a little bit yesterday after its big gap, and then I think it's gonna be off to the races. And I think 205, 210, if not higher next week. Call me crazy. Um, I'll revisit Monday. If it has some more follow through on Monday, I'll look for more positions. But the other part is you have that gap, and I think the gap is 207. Do I have my chart? Of course, I don't have the chart for a line. Running out of time on a line. Not time. I'm trying to rhyme here. Back August. What is August? August. Sorry, folks. So you took a look at the gap. Uh, well, I don't have it here. Sorry about that, folks. Oh, open high, low. 201.87. So 201.87, that's the gap. Call me crazy. I can see that happening next week. If that's the case, obviously 195 strikes will be $6-7 out, if not higher, depending on when it gets there. So that's the thought process there. Uh, but again, you can't rule out a pull either. So I'm not going to sit there and hold all the calls when we're up 100%, especially, we don't know what happens over the weekend, but the weekend has been filled with lots of events, right? So, can't rule out any kind of move. That's why it's always be taking profits. All right. So that's a line. Other names I'm watching, and I keep looking at SolarEdge, and you kick myself Tuesday for not adding the strikes. And then this morning I was going to look for some calls, and same with Enphase. Those are two names I'm looking at because, SolarEdge reports, I think February 18th. So there'll be some time, but I think it's just a matter of time before it breaks out. So uh, I'll wait till Monday. Yeah. SHLS. What is that one? Other names here, Roblox. I keep posting that in the chat room. It's another name that, it's divisive because at some point there'll be, there's always government intervention, FTC, all these calls for shutdowns because of the nature of its business, right? Where there's not nice folks on the platform trying to do not nice things, right? And yeah, I mean, we've seen this with Facebook and stuff over the years in regards to their protections and safeguards. So that kind of creates possible headwinds. And when you're in calls, it's not fun to have some kind of filing or news event happen and then the calls get smashed because the stock goes down on some kind of catalyst. So I kind of struggle trying to get some calls. I did those calls a couple of weeks, last week or the week before. Might be a name I visit on Monday, so I'm just throwing that out there. That's Roblox. What was the other one? RH, Netflix. I think that's it. SSYS back over $11. 1225 is the big handle. Hopefully you can get through that. Some of these other names here. Zoom's kind of frustrating, right? Because if there was a day I thought would be the day it really starts to break out, it would be today. I guess some of it's because it actually held up relatively well considering all the other names in the space. They report earnings at the end of the month too, so uh, maybe at the end of next week, start of next week, I'll look to get some more strikes. Yeah, take a look at Monster today. Strategy, it's funny. People were talking it wasn't going to move after earnings, and here it is, up 25% today. I'm not. I tried to trade that today. I did the pincher. Maybe I did that back in November, and then that's it. So I'll just stay away from that one. Anyway, let's have a great weekend, folks. Rock and roll.